It was a perfect Sunday morning in Silver Creek, Arizona. The sun was just beginning to climb over the horizon, casting a golden glow over the modest homes nestled along tree-lined streets. Birds chirped in the distance, and the air felt crisp, the kind of calm that made you forget the worries of the world. It was a town where everyone knew everyone, where people still waved at each other from their porches, where Logan Carter had lived for the past 20 years, without a single complaint. Logan, a retired judge, had always loved the peace of his home. The house was an old, charming brick structure, nothing extravagant. But it was his sanctuary, his garage. A simple but carefully built structure was where his passion lay. It housed his collection of classic motorcycles, the pride of his life, especially his 1948 Indian Chief and the 1962 Harley-Davidson he'd spent years restoring. To Logan, these bikes weren't just vehicles. They were memories. Each part painstakingly assembled, each scratch telling a story of his journey through life. But that Sunday morning, everything changed. Logan had just finished a cup of coffee when he heard it. The sound of heavy machinery, rumbling in the distance, grew louder and louder. At first, he thought it might have been the town's road crew or some routine work being done. But as the noise drew closer, he couldn't shake the feeling that something was wrong. Stepping outside, Logan's eyes widened in disbelief. There, just beyond his driveway, was a bulldozer, its steel blade slowly cutting through the air as it aimed directly at his garage. The operator was pushing the machinery forward, moving closer and closer to the very place Logan had spent years cultivating. Logan's heart dropped into his stomach. He rushed forward, shouting, but the noise of the bulldozer drowned out his voice. It was as if the entire neighborhood was holding its breath, waiting for the inevitable. His mind raced, unable to comprehend the scene unfolding before him. His prized 1948 Indian Chief was inside that garage. The bike he had spent countless hours restoring. The bike that was not just a piece of machinery, but a symbol of his life, his dedication, and his love for craftsmanship. And now, this monster of a machine was about to tear it apart, leaving nothing but destruction in its wake. As Logan tried to sprint toward the machine, a voice called out from behind him. "It's for the HOA. Mr. Carter," said a man, his voice oozing smugness. Logan turned to face him, his fists clenched in fury. The man wore an ill-fitting uniform with a cheap plastic badge reading HOA enforcement. But Logan was too stunned to even respond. "This is a mistake," Logan yelled, his voice rising in frustration. But the man just smirked, almost enjoying the moment. "It's not a mistake," the man said, his tone flat and dismissive. "You've violated the rules of the neighborhood. We have to destroy this garage. HOA policy." Logan's mind went into overdrive. HOA Silver Creek didn't even have an HOA. He had specifically chosen this neighborhood because it was free from those bureaucratic restrictions. He didn't need anyone dictating how he could live. But now, this man, this so-called enforcer, was telling him that his life's work, his sanctuary, was being torn apart for a policy that didn't even exist. "Who the hell are you?" Logan asked, stepping closer, his voice cold and dangerous. The man didn't flinch. "We've been hired to enforce the new regulations. The garage doesn't meet standards." Logan's blood boiled. New regulations. There were no new regulations. This was a lie. A blatant, disgusting lie. Logan, his face growing pale with rage, walked back toward his porch. He pulled out his phone, dialing a number he knew by heart. He wasn't going to deal with this alone. He was done being passive. The phone rang twice before a familiar voice answered on the other end. "Logan, is everything all right?" "No, everything is not all right," Logan responded, trying to keep his composure. "I need you to get over here. There's a group of fake HOA enforcers tearing down my garage. I'm going to need your help." It wasn't just about the garage anymore. This was bigger than that. This wasn't some petty dispute over property lines. This was about people taking advantage of their power and using it to destroy others. Logan had seen it before, but he never thought it would come for him. The voice on the other end was sharp now. Urgent. Logan, stay calm. I'm on my way. Do you need me to call the police? Logan hesitated, his eyes still fixed on the bulldozer. Police. That was the last resort. He needed to take control of this situation himself. The air around him was thick with tension, and he could feel the growing crowd of neighbors watching, some whispering, some just standing there, paralyzed by what they were witnessing. I've got it handled, Logan said. Before hanging up and walking back toward the chaos, Logan stood at the edge of his property, staring at the wreckage of his beloved garage. The sounds of the bulldozer's engine still echoed in his ears, but now it was replaced by the pounding of his own heart, thumping with a mixture of disbelief and fury. His Mustang, his Indian chief, his memories, all of it had been reduced to rubble in the blink of an eye, by a group of strangers who felt they had the right to destroy what he had built. But as the dust settled and the machine powered down, Logan knew this wasn't the end. It was just the beginning. The beginning of his war, not just for his property, but for justice. He took a long, steadying breath, trying to quell the anger that surged through him. There were too many things wrong with what had just happened. The most glaring was the fact that the men who had just destroyed his garage, they had no right to do this. They weren't part of an HOA. They weren't part of anything legitimate. They were frauds, and Logan wasn't about to let that slide. He reached for his phone and dialed the number of his old colleague, Sarah Bennett, a tough-as-nails investigator from the district attorney's office. Sarah had been one of the few people Logan trusted in the realm of law enforcement. She knew how to get things done and wasn't afraid to go against the grain. Logan, what's going on? Sarah answered on the second ring, her voice crisp with professionalism. I need your help, Logan said, trying to keep his voice calm. But the frustration bled through. There's a group of men here claiming to be HOA enforcers, but they've been harassing the residents for weeks. They just destroyed my garage. Sarah, and the worst part, they're not even legitimate. I need to make sure these guys are stopped before they ruin more lives. There was a pause on the other end of the line. Logan could hear Sarah's deep sigh of understanding. I'm on it, she said. Give me the details. I'll put the wheels in motion, but you need to stay calm. Logan, this could be bigger than you think. Logan looked around at the now quiet street, the wreckage still smoking under the Arizona sun. The neighbors were still standing on their porches, peeking out from behind windows, unsure of what to do next. Most of them were scared, resigned to the idea that they could do nothing. But Logan wasn't like that. He was the mayor of Silver Creek, a retired judge with decades of legal experience. He wasn't going to sit by and let a group of con men run rampant. He knew he had the power to stop them, and stop them he would. Sarah, they've been issuing fake fines, intimidating people, and stealing property from everyone in this neighborhood. You have to understand, this isn't just about me. It's about the entire community. We need to get them out of here before they cause more damage. I want to bring them down. All the way. Sarah's voice grew firmer. I'll start digging. But Logan, you need to start gathering evidence. Everything you've got. Get statements from the neighbors. Keep your eyes peeled for anything that links them to other properties. And keep everything you find to yourself for now. The fewer people who know, the better. It's going to get ugly. Logan hung up, his mind already whirling with the next steps. It wasn't enough to call the police. He needed something more concrete. He couldn't rely on just a few witness statements. He needed hard evidence. Walking past the bulldozer, he snapped a few pictures of the wreckage with his phone, making sure to capture every angle of his destroyed garage, the devastated motorcycles, and the brand new tire marks left behind. He also took photos of the workers, knowing that their faces could become critical evidence later on. As he moved down the street, he approached a few of the neighbors who had witnessed the scene unfold. Mrs. Hawthorne, an elderly woman who had lived in Silver Creek for decades, was standing on her porch. Visibly shaken, they said they had the authority, she whispered, her voice trembling. But I never heard of any HOA in this neighborhood. Logan nodded. I know, and we're going to make sure everyone knows the truth. After gathering a few more testimonies and taking additional photos, Logan headed back to his house. The pieces of the puzzle were starting to come together, and he knew Sarah would be working on her end to help him uncover more. The tension in Silver Creek was palpable. The once peaceful town, known for its quiet streets and friendly neighbors, had now become the battleground for Logan Carter's fight against the fraudulent HOA enforcers who had tried to tear apart his life. For days, Logan had gathered evidence, worked with Sarah, and spoken to the other residents. His phone buzzed constantly with updates from Sarah's investigation and witness statements from the neighbors. Each new piece of information built on the last, revealing a damning web of deceit and corruption. The fake HOA operation was far more extensive than Logan had imagined. It wasn't just about his destroyed garage. It was about hundreds of homeowners who had been scammed, blackmailed, and extorted for years. But now, Logan had a plan. He wasn't just going to let these con artists slip away, as they had with so many others. He was going to expose them, publicly, and he was going to do it in front of the entire town. The courthouse was packed. The atmosphere was electric, charged with anticipation. News vans lined the streets, cameras flashing as reporters scrambled to gather details. Word had spread fast. The story of the fake HOA had reached far beyond the boundaries of Silver Creek. It was no longer just a local issue. It was a media frenzy. Inside the courthouse, Logan sat in the front row, his posture calm, but his mind racing. He could hear the low murmur of conversation all around him, the whispering of people who had once been too afraid to speak out against the fraudulent HOA. But now, thanks to Logan's relentless pursuit of justice, they were here, they were ready, at the defense table. Slick, Blondie, and Beard sat in their suits, trying to maintain their composure, though it was clear that their confidence had all but vanished. Slick, the leader, fidgeted in his chair, constantly glancing at the door, as if he was hoping for a miracle. But there was no escape. This time, they would answer for their crimes. The judge, an older woman with sharp eyes and a no-nonsense attitude, called the court to order. She flipped through the thick stack of paperwork before her, her face unreadable. Logan's gaze never left the defendants. He could feel his pulse quicken as the moment of reckoning approached. We will proceed with sentencing now. On the charges of fraud, criminal property destruction, impersonating a city official, and extortion, the judge announced. The room fell silent. Logan had been waiting for this moment for a long time. He had seen countless cases in his career as a judge. But this was personal. This was about more than property. This was about integrity, justice, and the people who thought they could get away with ruining lives for their own gain. The judge turned her attention to the defendants. You have been found guilty of exploiting the community, causing harm to innocent people, and taking advantage of those who trusted you, she said, her voice cold. The law will not look the other way. Slick's face flushed. His smug demeanor had completely shattered. He looked to his lawyers, but they offered no reassurance. Blondie shifted uncomfortably in his seat, glancing at Beard, who sat with his hands in his lap, staring at the floor. This is insane, Your Honor, Slick shouted, slamming his fist on the table. We were just doing our job, the homeowners. They didn't follow the rules. We had every right to. Enough, the judge interjected sharply. You lied. You destroyed property. And you took advantage of people who had no idea they were being scammed. There is no excuse for your actions. Logan's breath caught as the judge prepared to deliver the verdict. You three will each serve 15 years in prison, effective immediately. Additionally, restitution will be made to the victims, and an audit will be conducted of the HOA's financial dealings, the judge said firmly. Bringing down her gavel, this case is closed. The courtroom erupted in gasps. Slick's face turned beet red. Blondie stood up, his legs shaking, trying to steady himself. Beard simply slumped, his expression defeated. They were done. The judge's words were the final blow. And Logan could feel a sense of satisfaction settle in his chest. The battle had been long, but it was finally over. As the officers stepped forward to handcuff the three men, Logan remained seated, his arms crossed, watching. He didn't feel any anger or bitterness now. All he felt was relief. Relief for the people of Silver Creek, who had been forced to live under the shadow of these criminals. Relief for his neighbors, who had been too scared to speak up before. And relief for the future, one where people like these scammers would no longer be able to manipulate others without consequence. Logan walked out of the courtroom with his head held high. He didn't need to say a word. The community had already seen the truth.